Welcome to yet another episode of Libertarians Drinking Coffee Live, a little bit past 3 p.m. on the East Coast. And I'm very happy that I am being able to showcase some libertarians running locally, trying to make change across this country. Man, it is hard, but we are trying, that is for sure. And Jacksonville, Florida, just getting so much done, so many opportunities here, many people running. I'm very lucky today. I have one of them with me. I have someone who is running for city council in the great city of Jacksonville, Florida, as a libertarian. Why is he crazy? I don't know, but obviously he is. Man himself, Ronald Robison. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I am surviving every day, trying to make the world a better place. It doesn't always work, but guys like me and you keep trying, that's for sure.
Absolutely. The optimism is our gift and curse.
Yes, it is both, correct. And if you want to see what Ron is doing, you can head over to his website, rontracy4jax.com. If you're listening to this on the podcast, that's R-O-N, Tracy is T-R-A-C-Y, the number 4, Jax, Jax.com. So you can check him out there if you like. Ron, I have to ask you this. One of the things that we find when running for office is so many people will run away from controversial topics, but not you. You are open, talking directly about religion, race, family. You don't care. In fact, your saying is freedom, faith, family, forever. That's a big deal. Why did you go so bold? Not that I'm against it, but why'd you do it?
Because the big problem in Jacksonville is people like to talk around each other a little too much, so you can never really know where people stand on certain things. I like to be as upfront as possible about where I am and where I stand, so you can know exactly what you're getting, but still leaving, still giving people the grace so we can build a bridge toward one another. Because that's the beauty about being a libertarian, is that we can all think the way we want to think as individuals,
right,
and there's always space for differences, always room for opinions to come flourish in our same party, just as long as we don't use a central authority to coerce everybody to follow the same route. That's all.
Absolutely. Completely agree. It's amazing that you say that. And so many people don't get it, right? They don't get it. They think that if I personally, don't like tomatoes, then that means no one can have tomatoes and we need to ban and outlaw tomatoes, right? But exactly. Maybe you like tomatoes. I don't know. Eat as many tomatoes as you want. Just don't force me to eat them, right?
That's all. Mm-hmm.
If anything,
we're going to have a ketchup caucus, and then we'll just do our own thing,
I love it. Even better. But you went one step further, and you said that the world, or your culture, our culture in America, says that you're supposed to run either as a Republican or a Democrat. And because of your race, you're supposed to run Democrat, but because of your religion, you're supposed to run Republican. And neither of those is really true, or is it?
Yeah, no. In Jacksonville, being in the Southeast, we're in of course, the Bible Belt. It's very Southern Democratic. Even the way I grew up conservative Democrat, or how we say the Kennedy-crats. We were Kennedy-crats growing up. My mother and father, my grandmother were very into that period of time, or that presidency with John F. Kennedy, who to me was the last Democrat to hold office ever. If we ever want to have a vision of what a Democrat looked like, the last time we had it, it'd probably be JFK and Bobby. So growing up, they themselves, my mother and father, realized how much the party has changed drastically over the years, and how now being African American means that you have to abide by tenets of suffrage and victimhood, and that suffrage and victimhood is supposed to be your empowerment. That's supposed to be your saving grace, as opposed to being proud of who you are as the person you are today, what you contribute today with your own grit and your own gumption, and accomplishing for yourself what you need to for yourself and your family, and having that generational stepping stone and generational wealth build over time. That's what is supposed to be going on. But with Jacksonville, since it's such a big city, it's a big, as far as African Americans concerned, it's very big in the culture of suffrage and victimhood. You know, NAACP is pretty big. SLCL is pretty big.
Yep.
And it's a dominant culture, you know, lift every voice and sing, James Weldon Johnson, all this type of stuff. There's big Confederophobia here. And it's just, you're supposed to pigeonhole yourself into an idea that says you are a perpetual victim. And our biggest vision of what we have as overcomers, our greatest contribution in history would be the civil rights era, you know, Martin Luther King and all this type of stuff. But it's always from the very narrow view of how we were slighted by racism, or how they say white supremacy and all this type of stuff, as opposed to, you know, other avenues. Because I'm a big history buff.
Let me touch that for a second, if I could.
Yeah.
Let me touch it for a second. I with you. The thing that is bothering me about that is, we are not talking about our successes. We're talking about our failures. Mm-hmm. And you can't grow self-esteem as an individual, as a community, as anything by just going, yeah, we screwed up, we suck, we're bad. You have to be able to grow that by having successes, right? Successes, or failing and then getting back up. Right? That's the way you grow your self-esteem, either as a culture, as a community, as an individual, as a family, whatever the case may be. And I feel, to your point, that many communities, any marginalized minority communities, if they don't create that, see, look at what we've done, like, look at where we are now, even if they aren't as high as they want to be, whatever that level is, if they aren't saying, look at where we are now, we should be proud of this. And instead saying, we're proud of how we were born, that is by default a problem. And I think that's where you're going. Am I right?
Absolutely. And I completely agree. And the problem with Jacksonville city government, it likes to cater to the very low-hanging fruit so they can win political points. That's the biggest problem. And even recently, we've had a very big election interference problem. Pretty sure you've heard about it from Eric when you interviewed him the last time, where they redistricted the map in the middle of the race because there are a lot of interest groups. Yeah, there are a lot of interest groups that felt like it was racially gerrymandered and all this type of stuff. But the problem is, once they've done that, it's become even more gerrymandered than before, because now it's separated by almost strictly class. Because in the district that I was running in before, I was running in south of Trout River in Jacksonville, and that was what would be considered the hood, you know, where most of our grandmothers are at, right? And, you know, and now where I'm at further north, in the northwest side, that would be the more higher income side, the $45,000 plus side, and all that kind of stuff. I've been cut off from south of Trout River, where I was campaigning for the past year and a half. And so now I had, at that time, about 3 months to appeal to a whole nother demographic. You know, before it was in a very big Democrat urban area. So now my campaign switched to both urban and rural Republican MAGA country type of area. But the message still remained the same. I just only had to saturate maybe a couple of different points, because as a libertarian, it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on in the spectrum. There's a place where we can come and agree, and both agree that central authority is what's depriving us of the goal that we both want ultimately.
Right. The elites are our enemies, right? Those are really their enemy. The elites who control everything are our enemies, not the people on the ground who happen to think more left or think more right. I completely agree. But I'll go one step further that you brought up, right? I have a chunk of family in the South. And the chunk of family that I have in the South, they're in Florida, in Georgia, in that area. Most of them are conservative. You know, they go to the black church, they own guns, right? I mean, most of them are. But they vote Democrat, right? To your point. Like, they're conservative in many ways. If you talk to them, the thoughts they'll have, the way they'll believe would lean more conservative, but they vote Democrat. And if you ask them why, it's like, well, Republicans are racist. That's it. That's the reason. They don't even care about whether the policy is good or bad, or whether they agree with the policy or not, or if they're going to help them or not. And I think I feel like this is an opportunity for us as libertarians, because Democrats take the black community for granted, and they're right, because it's generally true, particularly black women. And then Republicans say, I can't get this, so why waste my time? They're never going to vote for me,
Exactly.
so who cares? I
And the
think this is the
biggest
perfect
bump,
timing.
okay, sorry, I was going to say the biggest bump to your point about the Republican Party. The biggest bump that I've seen of Black conservatives was during, of course, 2016 during the Trump administration, where you had Candace Owens, Brandon Tatum's, Larry Elder, individuals like that. And even me, that's when I started coming around to the Republican Party around maybe 2018, 2019, around that time. And because I was always very skeptical of authority. I always had a fascination for anarchism, even at a very young age. But when it came to that period in time, I started entertaining the Republican Party because I started looking for some sort of political home where I can lay my head. And it wasn't the Democrat Party, because I'm seeing the whole wokeism really popping off. And then I'm saying it was so refreshing to me to see other melanated people expressing their political views in a multifaceted fashion. It was something that was fresh to me at that time, and I really appreciated that. But it was at the very end of the Trump administration where COVID-19 really started popping. And once he became a cheerleader for the Federal Reserve, as opposed to saying, hey, you need to start cutting back and start leaving the free market alone so they can, figure out what to do next, he ended up overexpanding government power. And he ended up spending in 4 years what took Obama 8 years. He did it in one term. And that was when I got off the train completely. And so that's when I went to Libertarian Party of Duval meetings, and that's where I got acquainted with them. And then maybe 6 months to a year later, when our own mayor started doing the very same thing, overexpanding government power, shutting down 130 small businesses, 67% of which will never come back. And a lot of them were Black-owned businesses. And this is where I'm coming. The point I'm making is this was my journey into becoming a libertarian and seeing how in my own city, where local governance is choking the citizenry, because our government is so big, but the citizenry is just so very small. And that's where me, Eric Parker, and Tub, we just came together like a triumvirate and said, hey, let's go ahead and do this and take it on. And
So let me talk to the audience for a second. If you're liking what you think, what Ron is talking about, if it makes sense to you, then do me a favor and support him. Head over to his website, rontracy4jacks.com, see what he's doing. And more importantly, if you live in Florida, particularly if you live in Florida, support him. Give him some money. Give him $10, $20. You might say, Larry, all I got is like $25. That's good. That's Facebook ads, right? That's palm cards, right? That's things that matter for him to get. That's helping to get, door hangers. This is going on, knocking on doors. It's all those things. If you got 10, if you're in a position where you got $100 or $200, if you can swing it and you live in Florida, you should give it to him. It's a good investment. It is. I'm talking about his race in a second, but it's a good investment in someone like him to move this party forward, move this movement forward, and to get to the voice out that you need to have out there. It's important. So if you can give. If you say to yourself, Larry, I love you, but I don't have the cash. No worries. You can still volunteer. Head over there, rontracy4jacks.com. You can see his Twitter. Go to Twitter account, DM him, say, hey, I'm ready to volunteer. I'll show up. I'll knock on doors with you. I'll be your social media guy. I'll share and like and comment and do all those things. He needs all the help he can get. If you've got the cash, please give it. If you don't, no worries. Give him some time. Give him some time. Do some likes. Do some comments. Do some meme warring for him. He could use some meme warriors. He needs those too. All of them matter. If you can help out, please help out if you can. That's Ron Tracy, 4jacks.com. So I'm glad you brought this up, because I want to walk down this road of government overreach and the lockdowns. And that links directly into schools, right? I don't know if I told you my story, but the schooling in New York City was such a prison system that I actually homeschooled my daughter. I wouldn't send her to school anymore. It was a prison system. The lockdowns were embarrassingly bad. So you are unhappy with schooling in general. Your school choice is a big issue for you. Tell me why.
School choice is a big issue because I see all the time how it affects families in Jacksonville, Florida, particularly in the range of single mothers that they already got it hard enough. And it's like, for example, you have the woman, her name is Kamel. She teaches her own kids. She homeschools them. But the problem is, not only does she have to go to work to provide for their food, clothing, and shelter. She got 3 kids, by the way, and she's raising them by herself. She got to provide for their food, clothing, and shelter. She also homeschools them. And on top of that, she pays property taxes to the public schools that she doesn't even, that the kids don't even attend. They don't even go to the school, but yet she's still paying for other kids' tuition. And that's what, it doesn't make any sense. On top of raising her own family, keeping a roof over their head, and providing them her education, she wants to give them for the goal that she has set in mind for them based off of their individual interests. And that's why I hear all the stuff about school choice, especially in the state of Florida, because, you know, DeSantis is having all these hoorahs with these public schools. But even in Jacksonville, you have a group, it's a coalition of brothers and sisters. They went down there to Tallahassee. They met up with, what's that guy? The civil rights guy. I forget his name. With the perm, with the slick back perm. I forget. But he's a classic guy.
Al Sharpton?
Al Sharpton, yes.
There we go. Yes.
They met up with brother Al Sharpton, and they're marching, doing all this type of stuff. And I made a comment, and I'm saying, dude, people of any group shouldn't care what the government is banning or not banning. You should just teach your own children. I'm not here to go into the weeds of the public school system. I'm here just to cut off, just rip out the heart of the Leviathan and just do away with it. Okay. And I put up a quote by, Malcolm X saying, hey, only a fool will let his enemy teach his children in the first place. We want to say that we're a part of this and we're doing all that, but we forget the basic tenets of what these guys were saying back in those days. Only a fool would teach, let their enemy teach their children. And I'm tired of seeing us melanated people marching all the time, marching for the central authority to see us as human beings for once, and hoping for them to change their ways and give us fairness and just, it's not their job. It's not their job to teach your children. Even if they teach critical race theory, queer theory, all that type of stuff, even queer groups, guys that want to teach that slaves built this country. I know it's not true, but they have a right to teach it how they want to. If DeSantis want to take it out the schools, then take them kids out of school and create your own institution where you can harbor that type of education for yourself. I don't care who you are. You can be LGBTQ. You can be Black supremacist. You can be white supremacist. You can be whatever. Take their kids out of government institutions where you're going to have this constant loop of protesting and vying for supremacy within their sandbox.
Let me move then to Jacksonville, right, with this. Yeah. Now, what you're asking for then is are you asking for some type of credit for those people who homeschool? Are you asking to completely remove school tax from property tax? Like, what do you feel is the best policy or the way to enact something like that? Is it through a credit? Is it through a cashback? Is it through taking property tax out, paying for schools directly? What do you think is a good start, I guess, for something like this? I mean, obviously you can't solve the whole problem overnight from Jacksonville. Absolutely. But what's the start?
My start would be if someone pays the mortgage off of their home, the property taxes they should be exempt. There should be an exemption to those who pay their mortgage off in their home. Once that's finished, then all right, fine, that's done. Because that's basically it. There should be no reason why after you pay your mortgage that you're still paying rent to the government and you're still paying for public institutions that you don't participate in, because it's not just and it's not fair. And that creates market failure all the way around. Private schools and Sudbury schools, homeschool, they have to earn their keep. Private schools, they have to get paid by the teachers, by the parents directly, unless they don't have a job. That's why they yield twice as many graduation rates as public school institutions, because once you get to the publicly funded education, it devalues the worth of the education the children are getting.
Good. Let me get a quick question. It's a bit off. So I got some comments and questions. I'm going to grab one if I could. Dan asks, Ronald, do you think libertarians have better outreach to African Americans than the two big parties? Do you have a view on that?
I do. Throughout the beginning of my campaign, when it started, when I was in, like I mentioned earlier, a heavy Democrat urban area, it was really talking to African Americans about this stuff, guys in the hood, the drug dealers, the people doing all type of groups, pastors, mothers, fathers, construction men, their eyes light up when they hear this type of information, because they're tired of the BS too. They're just used to what they've been hearing so far, because no one has been coming to them to tell them anything different. Once someone tells them something different, and you can give them real life application to what you're saying in order to make it come alive, then it's good. Then the bridge is built ultimately. For example, in Jacksonville, Hurricane Ian came a few years ago, and it submerged this neighborhood in Ocean Way under about 12 inches of water. And FEMA ended up giving the people in that area about $10,000, which didn't even cover the furniture. And the current the administrator of that time, the city council, did very little to nothing to help them, the people in need. He greatly neglected the infrastructure in that area, because what happened was the creeks, culverts, they were blocked. It was dammed, and so they'll end up flooding from the culvert, then going into the pond, and then going right into the neighborhood, as opposed to the actual reverse, where it goes from the pond to the creek, then to the river, but end up doing the reverse. So my solution to that is, with using free market economics, just saying, all right, cool. There's about 45,000 registered voters in the district that I'm representing, or that I'm campaigning to represent. It only costs $5,000 to get a culvert fix. And there's a few culvert replacement businesses in Jacksonville. If I get elected, I just go there, use my resources as a just say, hey, I'm gonna direct these people over here, and then I'm gonna get their insight, get a quote from them, and then once I get a price, I pass it to the citizens in Jacksonville that directly benefit from it being replaced and fixed. And I say, hey, this is what the bill is. We can all consent to go and do a monthly payment plan to get this done and get it fixed up. With the money that's in Jacksonville, that's in the reserves of the billions of dollars, I don't know the specific number, we can do a like you said, a cashback credit, kind of like the Discover It cards. During the quarter, they have special prizes. You get enough gas, you'll get this prize, or you go to movie theaters, you get this cash back. Okay, we can do the very same thing, just to incentivize the people in Jacksonville, for those that consent to doing this monthly payment on fixing down and maintaining these culverts, to be more in contact and fixing up their
now you're getting the community directly involved in them helping themselves, right?
That's right.
The thing that,
and there's no extra taxes being raised up. Yeah, no taxes being raised up. You already have the logistics is already there, and the economics is already there. We just got to put it to where
and not just that, the people, if it's a local business, the local business also gains from branding and marketing on top of it, right? So the odds are they are going to lower their price, because they're literally marketing to their people. So the price will be lower, versus the opposite. Government's always triple. In this case, the price is lower. It's voluntary. But I want to make a more important piece, which I know you understand this. A lot of people don't. What the COVID lockdowns taught us was that so many of our communities have been supported by government for so long, they've forgotten how to help themselves. They have literally lost the institutional knowledge to support themselves. What you're talking about is re-encouraging communities to support themselves. Saying, wait a minute, we don't have to just sit here and beg the government to do stuff for us. We can go take care of ourselves and tell the government take a hike. We can do it. I love what you're talking about. I think it really does show. I never forget, Killer Mike said this, and people get mad at me when I bring it up, but Killer Mike said something on one of his shows. He said there was actually an advantage to segregation. And people were like, what? He's like, there was one. And the advantage is the Black community had to support itself. It couldn't go to the white communities. There had to be Black construction companies. There had to be Black lawyers. There had to be Black doctors. There had to be Black shoemakers, because you couldn't go to the white ones. So there had to be Black everything. We had to support ourselves. Now, I am not, to be clear, someone's going to be mad at me, I'm not saying segregation is a good idea, but I am saying self-sufficiency, communities supporting each other, ownership mentality. I am saying that is important and valuable. I think you're saying the same thing.
Absolutely. And I feel that with my resources that I have at my disposal, once I'm elected into council, I will, for one, remove government obstacles from the path of the one that I'm representing. And I will bring a more substantive legislative sovereignty, to the people that they haven't had before. For example, I'm not going to allow everybody in the council to make a plan for what District 8 doesn't consent to. For example, funding the stadium in Jacksonville. It's like, well, people in District 8 don't really want that, because we have what we want to do over here on this side. I don't want them to be bullied by all these other, people in the districts, making an overarching legislative plan that we don't agree with. Also, I'm planning on bringing human capital back into the mind frame of not just African Americans, but for everybody in Jacksonville, in my district, because as opposed to political capital that we've oversaturated and overcompensated for human capital, that's what I want to encourage. And for example, ever since Obama got into office, we felt like, okay, that was going to be the thing that's going to really get us on and get us forward. But it ended up doing the complete opposite, because with our human capital, we suspended it to the welfare state. And because once you create government overreach, it creates interest groups. With interest groups, it creates policies. And with policies, welfare is extended, and they put us all in this sandbox that we don't all want to be in, but they keep making the rules. And so we have to fight each other for the Twinkie that's over our head, which is the welfare state, at the expense of the next person. So bring up more human capital.
Let me grab a couple more comments. People are commenting here, and I want to pick up a couple of them. By the way, if you are hearing this and liking what you're hearing, then support Ronald. Please support Ron if you can. Head over to his website, Ron Tracy 4Jax. That's RONTRACY, the number 4, JAX.com. If you've got a couple bucks, if you live in Florida particularly, but even if you don't, if you've got a couple bucks you can spare, 10, 20 bucks does a lot. It does. It's Facebook ads, as I said, it's posters, it's handouts, it's hand cards when you're out there at the train station, the bus stop, right? It's all those things that he needs to get people to know who he is and to make that vote and to make impact there in Jacksonville. And of course, across the entire state, and we hope across the entire country. If you don't have any cash you can give, I got it. No worries. We're all not in the same spot right now. If you're not in a good spot right now, you can still hope with volunteering. Larry, I don't live in Jacksonville. No worries. He needs online help too. He needs social media warriors. These people that get out there, share his stuff, put comments, like all the things that get the algorithms going. You can do all of that for him. In fact, if you're a meme maker, he needs meme warriors for the meme wars. He needs them. Make some memes for him, get them out there. It all works if you got time. If you have more money than time, throw him a couple bucks. If you got more time than money, give him some time. Either one you can give. He needs them both. So if you can't help him out there, it's RonTracy4Jax.com. Let me grab a couple comments here. Let's see if I can grab this. Let's see here. John says, the government frowns on self-sufficient people. Yeah, I think that's kind of obvious, yes.
Yeah,
Patty
that's
is on your side
here.
Patty says, the Native Americans will tell you, letting your enemies teach your children destroys your way of life and the soul of your people. Another guest that will follow. You're batting 1,000, Larry. Oh, I'm doing good, Patty. Thanks. So yes, please follow him. This does matter. Please follow him. Every little bit does count. It is important. So if you can do it, it's great. Sam says, it's great to hear from other libertarians across the country. It's proof positive that red state or blue state, we encounter the same problems created by large government. Absolutely. I think that's your message, Ron, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Doesn't matter what side you're on the spectrum. Doesn't even matter the interest group that you're in. Like I said before, you could be far left, far right, LGBTQ, whatever, cisgender, non-whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yes.
Because let me tell you, me and Libertarian Party of Duval County, we went to a pride parade in Jacksonville, a neighborhood called Riverside and Avondale, very historical, very old part of town. And every year there's a pride parade that goes there. And I go there, and I'm a heterosexual Black man that I should have no business being there, right? But I'm there because I care for these people's self-determination. I care for their, I care for them in the fact that I see the games they played with African Americans since Reconstruction all the way into the 60s. I see them doing the same playbook with them and everybody else. We were. Now,
hold on. I want to hold on 1 second. I want to. This is your quote. This is exactly what you said, and it blew me away when you said it because I love it. But you said Blacks have been used as partisan pawns for moral leverage to boost the welfare state. Now you're telling me now the LGBT community is now falling into that same pattern. Is what you're saying? Am I right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And like I said before, with government overreach, they create more interest groups, because with government overreach, that's how many more people get left out of the pie. That's how they get booted out. We're just gonna lock everybody out so that they can, so they could need us that much more. And with those interest groups, you have policy. Policies get created. Like, for example, the 1964 Civil Rights Act that ended up destroying private property rights for people that the effects that we still feel to this day. And then from that, the welfare state gets boosted. We say that we are without.
We say we're helping people with the war on drugs. We say we're helping the poor Black communities, but we use the war on drugs to put Black fathers in jail.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the '94 crime bill by their cousin Joe Biden. I would use that to put more Black fathers in jail. How he's doing the same thing again with the pistol brace prohibition and all this other gun control prohibition. Jacksonville is doing the same thing here. For the past couple of years, I was making this point to Pastor Tubb when we had the Gold Rally fundraiser-thon. I was mentioning that ever since we got into this race, it just seemed like Jacksonville just doubled down on government overreach and making more laws to incriminate innocent people in order to justify the increase in police budget that we had this year. Because the police is the top budget line item in Jacksonville. Number one, fire department.
New York City too. Most cities is true. So guys, if you're listening or watching now, if you happen to be watching on Twitter, do me a favor, retweet this right now, right? We got to get past the algorithms if we can. So if you can retweet this, please retweet this right now. If you happen to be watching on Twitter, if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, click that like button, right? It does matter. Every like counts. So please click that like button. It really does matter. You can help us tremendously. I got to ask though, I mean, obviously your race is a tough race because all libertarian races are tough. But I know you guys are starting to make some impact. The three of you running is great. And you're even doing billboards. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
How are you making impact? Tell me a little bit about this race and how you're making impact in this race.
I'm making the impact by the biggest way that I made the impact was going door to door, putting foot to the pavement, going outside. I didn't spend nowhere near as much as the campaign online as I did out there into these streets. Me and the vice chairman of the Libertarian Party of Duval, Marcus Reeder, we would go out there every weekend. What I would do is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Monday through Friday, I'm out there by myself, and most of the time. And on Saturday and Sunday, he'll come out there with me, and then we'll keep going on, keep going on, keep going on. I went through over about 3,500 homes in the span of almost 2 years, and this is 2 different districts now, because remember I told you I was campaigning a whole other district. They changed the map on me, and then I started going into a whole nother other district. So from then on, we kept doing the same thing over and over again until I got absolutely burnt out, which was, I guess, today. Because I was like, you know what, I'm gonna rest a bit, because I'm gonna be on the call with you, and we had our fundraiser-a-thon, and we were just looking on rooms real quick and just going to the future. But that's the impact that I made, going and speaking to the people directly, man. Because like I said earlier, unless they hear something different, they'll never know. And when they hear it and you explain it to a way that it speaks to their personal situation, they light up. Their eyes light up about Libertarian Party and what we have.
The amount of people when I was running in New York who said, Larry, I'm going to vote for you because you answered my question directly. Like, that's why. They didn't even care if they liked the answer. They were like, they asked the question, I gave them an actual answer, and they went, oh, this guy, he gave me enough respect to just answer my question. He got my vote.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Crazy.
And I realized, a lot of libertarians, and plus Libertarian Party of Duval, we're only what, 5 people, maybe 10 people, if that. But the way we move, you would think, there's many of it. No, it's just only a few that are really dedicated, going out there and talking to the people directly.
It only takes a few.
Yeah, that's all. That's all it takes, man. And through our forums.
Let me ask you then: have you, obviously, this election? If you win in this election, the election's coming up here. What, the end of this month or next month, right?
Yeah, March 21st.
March 21st is election day. If you win this election, you get to be in the general election in November. Is that how that works? How does that work?
Once I win, well, if I have over 50% of the vote, then I go ahead and win the whole thing. But if I
is that right? There's not a secondary election?
Only if I have below
Oh, got it.
50%
Okay.
or 51%, but if I don't end up getting the whole 51%, then there's going to be a runoff in, I believe, June, either May or
Got
June
it.
is going to be
Okay.
the runoff race concerning that.
Got it.
Mhm.
So if no one gets 50% or 51% or more, then there'll be a runoff in June.
Absolutely.
Got it. Good. So we can get in there. So let me ask you then, besides an actual win, which obviously I want you to win this and I hope you win this thing. But if you don't, and sadly, libertarians often don't win. I wish we won more often, but sadly, we often don't win. Do you have another way of measuring a win? Is there something else that you would decide is a win besides just, getting the office?
The other measure is them just seeing the people that we've impacted over the course of the campaign. Because what we're planning on doing is, of course, building a coalition of more people
Yep.
to come together along with us so we can figure out ways to get directly involved in our communities without this overreach and how we can repel that. And because I've piqued a lot of curiosity with people about who we are and what we do. And they're so fascinated, they have a fascination with it. And they're like, wow, before I was apathetic, but now I'm really, it's almost this hope that comes into their eyes.
Got
Because
it.
either they didn't care or they didn't know. Because of course the city is so big and they have so many legislative sessions, they sweep it under the rug from a lot of people. But the course of the campaign, the more I kept updating people about what's happening and reviewing the policies that they're passing in City Hall, the more people started being like, wow, this is what they're doing to us this whole time. Like, knowing that before we came through, they never knew that the debt in Jacksonville was $3 billion. Jacksonville was $3 billion in debt. And to make the city solvent, each citizen of 1 million people got to pay a tax burden of $10,200 each. Not to mention with all the other taxes levied against us.
That's real money.
That's real money that we're being impacted by every day, putting us in desperate economic conditions. And we're answering people's questions by looking at these things from an economic lens. And that is a big measure of progress that I hold dear, outside of just winning the election, because I'm winning people's minds and we're winning people's hearts. The more consistent that we are, and not just running the campaign, but doing this outreach that nobody else is doing, because they got the money. They don't have to. But we don't have that type of luxury. So we have to go to people directly and build a community, like how Eric told you about having the church community, how we grew up and how it was just the same way, fellowshipping and doing all of that. So,
well, you got Janice on your side. Janice says, yes, when people are recognized and feel heard, a spark is relit and they come alive. Hope. It's Janice from California. So yeah, you got a fan in California. There we go. So Janice, you and anyone else who may not be in Florida, you can still support Ron. If you like what he's saying, if you want to make sure he's moving forward, head over to Ron Tracy 4Jax. That's RONTRACY, the number 4 JAX.com. And you can support him either with some money if you've got some. If you're in a spot where you can give $100, $200, give it. Good investment if you're in that place. If you're not, 10, 20 bucks would do. Again, still helps him out with whatever he can do. It's Facebook ads. It's all the little things we need to get people out there, do those types of things. Help put some gas in the cars. He's driving around Jacksonville. All those things, right? It does matter. And if you can't do that, no worries. Time is still valuable. You can volunteer some time, whether that's online. If you want to go, he's out there knocking on doors. Go with him. He could use somebody to help him out. Go with him. If you live in Jacksonville, live in the area, take a weekend off, drive to Jacksonville, and do some door knocking with him. It's important. This stuff matters. Seeing him with others matters. That's where you can help out. As long as you got some time, do that. It's awesome if you can. So I want to go, I guess, to the last question, if I could, which is, what's the future? What do you think is the future if you win? What do you think is the future if you don't win?
The future that I see when I win is a future that's going to be a lot slower. And I say that because Jacksonville it's way too busy. My issue with Jacksonville is way too much, like I said, way too many legislative sessions that happen every other Tuesday. Government's very big, but most of the stuff that they are doing has nothing to do with the human capital of the people in Jacksonville. Nothing to do whatsoever. They take the money that they get from mostly the American Rescue Plan a lot of stimulus money, a lot of bailout money, and they use that for their own stimulation of the economy, where they think there's going to be a big return of investment, which is not. Like putting money to a stadium at the expense of our tax dollars is not going to be a great investment. I wrote a whole article about it on rontracy4jax.com about, because there was an article that came out saying Jacksonville Jaguar fans, we pay very cheap tickets in comparison to other NFL teams, especially Arizona. And I said that's a lie, because our money gets taken all throughout the year because of these new proposals going over to Shahid Khan, the owner of the Jaguars. And nothing should be paid from taxpayer money, you know, if it can stand on its own 2 feet. The only time that we should pay anything is when we go down there to watch the Jaguars play or any other event that's going on. And it's not like they're going to be creating jobs that's going to yield 40 hours a week, great pension benefits. I worked for Safe Management, a stadium job there, maybe 10 years ago, and I forgot I was even employed. You know, so the average money that they think the stadium generates is what an average grocery store doubles. You know, so so it doesn't make any sense. So it'll be a lot slower in the fact that it's going to be a lot more paying down the debt, because Charlie Latham, the former mayor of Jacksonville Beach, that's very nearby, a different municipal body, they paid off their debts. They're a debt-free city. He had an 8-year payment plan to cure the city of his debt, and they're doing just fine. We can do the exact same thing, and there's nothing stopping that. But the future of me, if I don't win, is, like I said before, a lot more outreach, holding weekly classes on keeping people updated about what's going on economically in Jacksonville, policy review, teaching people about the value of private property rights, because there's a lot of calls for rent control, a lot of calls for tenants bill of rights, and all this nonsense where they are inferior to supreme private property rights, which is what they are not talking about. And they're trying to have this very progressive leaning thing coming through in the city. And my job is to pour the gasoline down the anthill before it becomes a mountain, right? Because once the fire spreads, it's going to be hard to wean the people back down to where we can look at it objectively and say, this is not the right way to go. Because even if I don't get in there, I'm going to be on their heels the whole time, the whole way. And yeah, that's the future if I don't.
I love it. You've given us a bunch of good stuff today. Ron, I want to say thank you so much for coming on today. It's been amazing. Thank you for giving us the time you gave us during your campaign. I appreciate it.
Thanks for inviting me. This was an honor and a privilege.
Awesome. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate all of you who paid attention, all of you who gave your comments. Thank you so much. Remember, if you want to follow Ron, you can. All of his stuff is in the description if you want to check it out, or just go right to his website, rontracy4jax.com. Guys, thank you so much for talking today. I will see you. I'll be on tonight, 7 p.m. If you want to see me again. So yeah, 2 days, 2 times in 1 day. Anyway, I will see you all very soon.